Finally. Alright. TvZ. Wall-in is good. Command center first is good. I like these things. I very much like this wall-in. And a gas. And it looks like Terran is not SCV scouting. I'm okay with that. This bunker is too early. Don't need a bunker this early. Even if you don't scout, fuck it. They're not going to go lings. Just to prove it to ya, I got vision on. There's no lings. Basically what happens is if you just do the factory and they go lings, like, you have a wall in. You're fine. You don't need a bunker. You didn't leave your barracks much room here. Obviously that was unintentional. The bunker placement is not perfect. You want to slide it over so it hugs this wall. This would be the perfect spot on this map for a bunker. Alternatively, maybe up here, if it fits. I don't know. Shit. I don't know if it even fits. But you want it to actually hug the wall. It does not need to touch your mineral line. It's actually fine. And the reason for that is if Zerg does a build that builds enough lings to actually matter, they have to go straight for the bunker. Otherwise, you can just like retreat your SCVs, wait for your Hellions, and be fine. So they can't really afford to just like sit back here and harass SCVs one at a time. And honestly, roaches are kind of unorthodox. Like, roach rushes happen. They exist, but they're bad. If you react properly, you should be able to hold off roach rushes with the proper bunker positioning to deal with Zerglings. And the way to answer a roach rush is to start a bunker on the high ground, abandon your natural, and lift up your wall in. Okay, 3rd CC starport. I really like the build so far. Hellions should go directly to scoured after clearing the watchtowers. Looks like you're going to go mech because you got your next gases. Go scout that 3rd. That's very important. Because if there is no 3rd, you need to be preparing for mutalisks. Alright, that's also actually fine. You can get the double gas and go bio. So we've got cloak, we've got upgrades. I like it. So far, I actually really, really like it. I mean, in a perfect world, these Hellions are being active as the Banshee is being active, and you're landing this expansion. And what you actually can do with this particular build is swap the factory and the starport. That's kind of the ideal thing. You just swap them. Then you start tanks in siege mode, and a medevac and a Viking. So those are some things that could be happening right now. Generally, when your 3rd orbital finishes, you go land it right away. That's when you go take your 3rd. You don't wait around. You've got Banshees, you've got map control, Zerg is droning. You can go do that. And so, those are the 3 things. Get in with the Hellions, go land the 3rd, and swap these properly. Stim is correct, Marine production is correct. Some of this pathing Like, this Banshee should be going and doing something. These Hellions should be doing stuff. But this build is really difficult to execute for these reasons. There's a lot of stuff you have to do. But for the most part, like, not bad. You've got the factory on a tech lab. You've got the starport building a reactor. Adding a bunch of barracks is good. An armory needs to be happening pretty soon. You should be breaking down these rocks. Perfect timing on the armory. Second factory needs to be started pretty soon. Yeah, so it's looking pretty good. Do stuff. Do more stuff with the Hellions. Send a Marine to this area before you take the Expo to clear out an Overlord. Build a bunch of add-ons. I would like to see a scan in the main for some tech information. Bringing back all these Hellions, not so great. Definitely include a Viking in this build to clear out Overlords. And to get some scouting. All reactors is probably what most pro players do. I prefer some tech labs. I like Marauders. But like, as far as builds to practice, what you've done here, this opening, is like a 10 out of 10. This is a professional Korean opening. Very, very well done. So now this is where, like, if you've done everything perfectly macro-wise, you can fake a push, and like you push down to like here and siege up, and then retreat, and Zerg doesn't take a fourth, and they build a ton of units, and you start your fourth. That's kind of how you're supposed to get ahead with this build. So you scan and don't see much. I'd like another scan at the natural to figure out what's coming. I'd also like a blind turret at each base, and a turret up front for burrowed stuff. A Marine at the fourth would be a good thing. So it's just a lot of little things. Like, overall, you're doing a really great build. And frankly, like, you know all of these things already. I'm not telling you anything new. It's just execution stuff. And I know from myself, this build is extremely difficult to pull off. It's really, really, really tough to do this build and do everything properly. You know, micro the Viking, micro the Banshee and the Hellions. Stay on top of your macro. Like, you have to do all that stuff and react to the Zerg and Scout. But it's a very rewarding build. Start your fourth a lot earlier. That's another thing. Like, you want to start your fourth as you land your third, and really stay on top of those expos. You should be controlling this watchtower at this stage of the game. Alright, so we've sort of covered the opening. Now we're going into mid-game territory. And mid-game is when Zerg is teching up to Hive, and Terran needs to disrupt that somehow. So the normal way of disrupting that is to drop in the main and push the Zerg's fourth. That's kind of the standard thing to do. So you see he doesn't have baneling speed. All said and done, your max timing is quite good, actually. Um, you're at about 15:30, and you're nearing maxed. I mean, you're gonna max out within a minute. That's quite good, actually. Like, the optimal, everything done perfectly with this build, you max out at like 15 minutes. So being a minute late is definitely nothing to be ashamed about. Alright, so this push is happening very, very aggressively. Too aggressively, in fact. Start sieging up much further back, like off creep. You want to set your rally point here too to get all this stuff. And if you're churning out supply depots, you're maxed in another 30 seconds. I don't think you need to push this too hard unless you see like a finished hive, which I don't think you had yet. Is that a hive? No. So slow down a little bit. Dropping the main is a really good thing to do here, just to show you from the Zerg standpoint, the main is totally undefended. If you have, it's best if you built a Viking and cleared out all these overlords earlier, so your drops are a surprise. But if you drop here, Zerg just they lose a lot of stuff. There's no easy way to defend this. Like, they run all their drones and they lose their pool. Like, what do they really do? Like, Zerg probably has to send back a bunch of stuff. It doesn't even have to be a full medevac. It can be like 4 Marines in a medevac. Alright, so you're going to get demolished in this attack. Just fungal growths. He's got so many infestors, aka 5. I just think fungals are going to be a real issue here. Like, this line is not very deep. You're too clumped up. I want to see tanks going like all the way back, and then when Zerg commits, you can just spread. You have so much more room to spread out. But we'll see how this goes. The battle happens, and you are victorious. Broodlords are on the way, as you should expect. This is part of the game where this 4th really needs to be up and going, and you want to throw down some starports and start building Thors, Vikings, and Marauders. This is much, much better, this type of push. Like, where you're really deep. These Broodlords are not a surprise, and you should have been prepared for them. When you are caught off guard by Broodlords like this, you want to load up your medevacs and go drop the main, because Broodlords are slow. So you did it, but your pathing was pretty not great. Went right by the watchtower. Okay. Instead of like rallying and trying to deal with this stuff, just go counterattack. I think it's got to be the play. So what is your armory in? You're like maxed out. 66 SCVs. Okay, it's just kind of scattered. You have like some stuff kind of spread out, which happens. Happens to everybody. And it's a pretty simple roll at this point. GG. I could see a couple more barracks. I could see a third factory eventually. Some of that stuff requires a faster fourth. Really good game though. Very sick opening. Very difficult opening. Like, if you want to play that build, that's terrific, and there's probably no better build to practice, but you should practice that same exact build every single game against Zerg, because that's a build where, like, slight fuck-ups are going to lose you the game, even to much weaker players, and it takes a lot of experience and just practice, because once you, like, have the muscle memory built in of controlling the Viking and the Banshees, and when to macro, and when to expand, and when to add barracks, and how to do all the swaps. Like, all of that stuff, the only way you can actually execute that to a reasonable degree is if that's all, like, muscle memory that you don't even have to think about. If you have to think about, like, add-ons and force yourself to micro Hellions and force yourself to micro your Banshees, you're always going to be, like, 3 steps behind. So it's a great build. It's going to take a lot of practice, but yeah, I would say go for it. That's probably the best build in the matchup at this point. The only other consideration would be the very same build except mech, adding armories instead of eBays. But yeah, I think that's just the build. And I'm talking about, like, a quick 3 CCs with Hellions and Banshees.